Good evening and welcome to the regular session of council. Before we declare it open, I guess we need to have a procedural motion to amend the start time. That motion or my motion. I need a mover and seconder for the following, that the January 16th, 2025 regular meeting of council be permitted to start at 6 p.m. in accordance with section 4.2.1 of the municipality's procedural bylaw. Moved by Councillor Chilcott. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Weisler. All in favor? And we are carried. Now, I will declare the meeting open at 6:01. I remind members of any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. See none listed. Review of items not listed on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, we do have one item tonight. It's a walk-on as it came up today. It's going to be a closed session item, labor relations, employee negotiations, administration.
Thank you for that. Moving on with section 4 announcements. Does any member of council have any announcements for this evening? Councillor Chilcott.
Thank you. January 25th at the Edison, Vienna and Area Museum, they will be having a seminar based on the barn quilts, which are the quilts that you see on the barns as you're driving through the area. We have someone coming in to talk about them and let you know what they're all about. And that is at 2 o'clock until 4.
That'd be Mike Baker.
That would be Mike.
Mike
Thank you.
Baker.
Mike Baker.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Well, just a couple of announcements for me. First and foremost, this is our first meeting for 2025. So welcome back, everyone. Buckle up. We've got a busy year ahead of us, and I'm excited to leap off in January. Second, I'm very pleased to announce that this afternoon, the council was made aware of a certificate of Road Supervisor Intermediate certification was granted to Steve Adams recently at the AORS, as the Association of Ontario Road Superintendents or Supervisors meeting. Very proud of Steve on his accomplishment. I know he's not in the gallery with us this evening, but if he's tuning in, let you know that council is very proud of you and congratulations. We may have some news coming further and be able to publish within the next little while of some developments going on down in Port Burwell with regard to the DFO property. Found that out today as well. So stay tuned. We're moving on down to section 7, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting, which includes the regular meeting of council held December the 19th and the statutory planning meeting held December the 19th, 2024. Those minutes have been published. I hope everyone's had an opportunity to peruse them. And if there are no errors or omissions, I will accept a mover and seconder for the following. That the minutes from the regular meeting of council held December the 19th, 2024, and the minutes of the statutory planning meeting held December the 19th, 2024, be approved as presented. Anyone interested in moving and seconding that? Councillor Froehlich will move. Deputy Mayor Weisler will second. All in favor? Carried. Moving down to section 9, open forum. We have 2 members of the public who wish to speak this evening. Is one online? Megan?
Your worship, it does not believe so at this time.
All right. The second member of the public, I believe, is Valerie Donald, who wishes to speak regarding section 11.2A, if I've got that correct.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council, for this opportunity to make comments on the agenda concerning paid parking. First, I'm a resident of Bayham and a Bayham Waterfront Advisory Committee member. After receiving a report from staff, WAC recommended a pilot program of paid parking. Anyone who drove here tonight contributed to a user pay system, gas tax. I would make clear that the recommendation was for a pilot program and a small fee for residents, as we, the residents of Bayham, are paying for the beach with our tax levy right now. With the paid parking, there comes an ability to see where our visitors are arriving from. Our visitors are receiving the benefits of services provided by the taxpayer. We welcome visitors at any time. In the summer, our biggest draw to attract them is our beach. But just as the tourists, oh, I've skipped something, attraction, oh, sorry. But just as the tourist attraction of trekking Mount Kilimanjaro has created environmental disadvantages, with the excess of garbage being just one, we too have had to provide services for the use of the beach. And with Blue Flag, more requirements have to be met. But it was never the intent of the WAC to see residents who want to use the beach to pay a daily rate, but to have them register into the system and receive a pass for a nominal fee. Yes, there could be abuse of the pass, but that could be curtailed with the registration. The paid parking also could be an advantage to target marketing dollars. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. You had 9 seconds you could have used. Moving on then with section 11, physical services and emergency services, and 11.2, reports to council. Item A, report BL 0125 by Mark Russell, bylaw enforcement officer, regarding the Port Burwell East Beach paid parking options. Good evening, Mark. Make sure you speak directly into the mic.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, I'm discussing the options for the paid parking for East Beach in Port Burwell. Paid parking for the East Beach has been brought forward to Council on January 18th, March 21st, and May 2nd. The Waterfront Advisory Committee recommended that Council move forward with paid parking pilot, and Council accepted this recommendation on May 2nd. Most recently, Honk Mobile did a presentation to Council outlining the platform on December 19th. Traffic and parking issues are increasing on the East Beach, and in the past, paid parking machines were not considered due to the implementation and maintaining concerns, and also vandalism and theft. Payment, Honk. So payment options can be through Honk Tap, Honk Text, Honk App, and Honk Web. Users can pay debit, Visa, MasterCard, Apple Pay, Google Pay, and PayPal. Most of these people have Apple Pay, Google Pay, and PayPal already installed on their phones, and it's a very simple process. Parking enforcement. The parking enforcement tool allows officers to determine if a vehicle has paid or not. Vehicles with expired time and have not paid will be ticketed. Honk sends notifications prior to the time expiring, and the users can either remove the vehicle or top up their parking session. This increases the municipality's revenue and reduces the potential of unnecessary tickets being issued. Parking tickets and appeals. If an owner would like to dispute a parking ticket or report issues with the payment, they are able to submit a complaint through the online form. If an error is found on the ticket, a ticket will be voided. Administration and collection of parking tickets. Administration and collection of the parking fines will continue to be administered by the County of Elgin and the Provincial Offenses Office. Bayham receives 90% of parking revenue, except 10%, which will be kept by the county to cover up administration. Fine revenue is estimated at $10,000 to $15,000 per year. Economic development and technological barriers include partnerships could be made where parking users can pay in cash at a local business and the business logs the parking session. Port Burwell Marine Museum has expressed interest in helping with the manual payments during the operational hours. Preferred cost and preferred vendor cost. Staff recommended Honk Mobile as a mobile parking provider for the pilot program. Honk is a Canadian company based out of Toronto and has partnerships in London, St. Thomas, Niagara on the Lake, in Central Elgin, and many more. The cost would be $50 per month to administer the program, which includes the cost of reporting, software, enforcement tools, signage, QR codes, and tap reader stickers. Honk retains 5% of the transaction fee with a minimum of 35 cents per transaction and 2.9% plus 30 cents card processing fee, which typically the users pay. While supervising bylaw for the town of Tillsonburg, I was reviewing the costing for Hotspot, and it was significantly more expensive due to the additional enforcement tools and features. These features don't benefit Bayham as the county does the parking ticket administration, and it will be expensive for a pilot program. General parking passes and resident parking, seasonal parking passes. Honk can provide a general seasonal pass or a residential seasonal pass through Honk Hub. Port Stanley, which offers a general parking session to anyone for $103.50. And in 2024 generated $55,963. Norfolk County offered resident passes for $35 per vehicle with the restrictions on hours and days. Staff are proposing $100 with no restrictions. That's the recommendation from Norfolk County's $100 pass. Honk Hub seasonal pass, which would be a resident only system. Honk Hub allows the municipality to create a residential parking pass. Residents apply online showing proof that they're residents. Staff review applications, and if approved, the user will purchase a resident parking pass. Honk Hub cost is $500 per month, plus the transaction fee and processing fee, which the charges can be passed on to the user or absorbed by the municipality. However, it is unknown how much the residential seasonal passes will cut into revenue. Recommendation for general and residential seasonal passes. Staff are recommending against seasonal passes for 2025. However, if council decides if they would like to have a seasonal pass, staff are recommending that passes be open to the general public to avoid additional cost of the Honk Hub program and additional staff time. In addition, that the general parking passes be for off-peak days only, such as Monday to Thursday, excluding Mondays, which are stat holidays, and be sold for $75. Comparable parking rates are municipality of Central Elgin, so Port Stanley Main Beach is $20 for a daily rate. An hourly rate is $4, and the seasonal pass, which is open to everybody, is $103.50 plus HST. Norfolk County, which includes Port Dover, Turkey Point, Long Point Beach, don't have a daily rate, but they have an hourly rate of $4. Their seasonal rate, which is only available to residents, is $35. Again, staff have recommended that each vehicle be charged $100. And also Ontario Parks, which includes Port Burwell, Long Point, and Turkey Point Beach. Their daily rate is $18 and $84.75 for a summer rate. Staffing and transportation. Bylaw's time is split 60% of the time with Bayham and 40% with Malahide. Paid parking puts additional demands on staff during busy summer and spring schedule. Staff are recommending that we hire a seasonal bylaw enforcement officer to assist with the parking and the beach enforcement to ensure compliance is gained, increase revenue, and provide customer service at the beach, which will be needed. Staff are recommending that the seasonal staff versus a student, as seasonal staff are typically older and have more experience with conflict management skills. The seasonal officer would start at the end of April and allow training, which would allow for training and finish the second week in September. Enforcement would be 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and for 5 days a week, with weekend coverage up to 40 hours. Staff are recommending a seasonal officer be outfitted with an e-bike. This will eliminate the need for additional vehicle, reduce the carbon footprint, increase the officer's presence, and allow transportation without placing additional physical demands on the officer. In the world of bylaw enforcement, e-bikes are quickly replacing conventional bikes, and e-bikes have successfully been implemented in Tillsonburg, London, Gravenhurst, Leamington, and many more municipalities. The benefits of an e-bike over a conventional bike is it reduces physical demands of the officer, decreases chance of a heat stroke during hot summer days. The uniforms are not sweaty from riding, which increases the appearance and professionalism of the officer. Officers respond quicker to complaints, and also it's a community engagement tool. Personally, while I was in Tillsonburg, I had a chance to ride the e-bikes, and it was a very good conversation starter with the residents, and it was a good public relationship tool. A one-time expense of $5,000 would be needed for an e-bike and a storage solution with a storage solution. Communications and Wi-Fi, the manager of Public Works has been in contact with the internet provider to increase Wi-Fi capability. At the beach, the Wi-Fi extender will help resolve the Wi-Fi issues at the beach and will allow free internet for everyone that wants to access a parking session. The Wi-Fi improvements are estimated at $2,500 and a much needed improvement to the beach. Potential revenue implications, approximately 168 spaces are at the East Beach. Staff are proposing a daily rate of $20 and $4 per hour, which is very in line with what Norfolk has and also Port Stanley. Staff have consulted with Honk to create realistic projections, which include for each month. And at this point in the presentation, I'm going to pass it over to Thomas.
Thanks, Mark. I figured I'd stand up here. It's a little bit easier to talk to council and then see the screens as well. What I'm going to have Megan do right now is just put one of the projections onto the screen. If you could put the low one, I think it's the bottom one there. Or that's probably the top one. If you can zoom in a little bit, I'll speak to that. So for some background first, council approves an operating budget on an annual basis. And one of the operating items that council approves is the East Beach, which is, for those keeping score at home, if you're looking at the operating budget, it's the tourism page. The tourism page of the operating budget will show that currently the East Beach's revenue is $15,000 a year. And that is the concession food booth lease agreement. When it comes to operating expenditures, we put out about $65,000 a year in expenses at the beach that come off the levy, which means that at this point in time, the beach, being a recreational asset with only one revenue source, is a $50,000 cost center of the municipality. Based on 2025 numbers, that's 0.75% of a levy point. So where the revenue generation of paid parking comes into play is the potential to take this off the levy in full. Why it hasn't been originally presented as an option to be fully off the levy is because we were undergoing data analysis and data collection with the assistance of Public Works over the summer to get an idea of how the beach parking was actually used. And which is why this report comes back with the option to fully take it off the levy and make it a full user pay system. The projection on the screen right now is a high projection. And this is based on 50% utilization, so it is still a relatively conservative estimate. The estimate concludes about $46,760 in monthly revenue. And when you consider the beach, the operating season is approximately 3.75 months, a little bit less than 4 months. And I'll go into how this aggregates over the entire season in a couple of graphics. But what I wanted to bring everyone's attention to are the expenses that Honk takes, which are the bottom of this graphic here. There's one that's identified paid by township. This can be either paid by the township, which is absorbed through general revenue, or passed on to the vehicle owner. 2.9% plus 30 cents on the dollar. This is the card fee that applies for the credit card transaction. You'll note that it's about 5% of the overall revenue. The second one is the 5% convenience fee, on $46,760. That's $2,338 that honk takes as their fee. Again, this could be absorbed by the municipality or passed on to the vehicle owner. So the projections you're going to see forward assume that the municipality is absorbing all of these fees. It's assuming the municipality is essentially losing 10% of every dollar it takes in, which means that 90 cents on every dollar is municipal revenue. I'm going to ask Megan to put the next graphic up for the low projection, just for context. The upshot of this one is the low projection is approximately half of what the high projection is, about $23,380 a month, with expenses off the top, we're somewhere in the ballpark of $21,000. Let's give council and members of the public the opportunity to take a look at what's on the screen. Okay. Now I'm going to ask Megan to put up the last graphic. The last graphic is going to show council what the operating budget tourism sheet would look like under each projection, including a midpoint scenario. So what you'll see under revenue is our current beach revenues of 15,000, which is the East Beach contract for the lease, plus paid parking revenue for low, medium, and high. The expenditures include our current beach expenditures, which are approximately 65,000 a year. For context, our year-to-date for 2024 is a shade over 61. We include the paid parking expenses, which is that approximate 10% that's coming off the top for honk. We also include the additional seasonal bylaw enforcement officer at $25,000, which includes wage plus grossed up statutory benefits. And for the medium and high scenarios, we have an inflator to those standard budgeted beach expenses like maintenance, utilities, etc., because we assume as revenue and therefore usership goes up, the maintenance pressures will also increase. The upshot of this is that based upon our projections, each of these models generates either a slight or a significant profit to the municipality should it be taken off the levy, meaning that current revenue sources plus a paid parking model as presented is fully funded as a user pay system. Now, what's interesting is that this takes operations off the levy, so residents will see ideally a 0.75% levy decrease because they are not subsidizing the beach. Under the mid and the high scenario, there's $37,000 in extra profit, $72,500 under the high scenario, which means that this money can potentially be reserved for capital. This is an important consideration because in our capital plan, we have $1,050,000 in proposed beach improvements that are currently levy and or grant with no specific way to fund those. Having dedicated money from a revenue generating system such as this to put aside towards capital is an additional boon for the municipality, particularly with some of these projects coming up in the next 2 to 3 years. So with that, I will leave it with council and council deliberate and pass it off to the mayor to encourage development. I would note that treasurer is also here for comment. The treasurer has reviewed these numbers and is in agreement with what they show. We're available for any questions, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Stand where you are. That's a good spot for you.
Sounds good.
Thomas, the variable between the low, mid, and high scenario that you've got in front of us, is it simply volume of use?
It's volume of use, yes.
All right. It would be interesting to see what the scenario looked like based on various different fees. That's one thing, but still, that clarifies that for those who happen to be looking in.
And Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, I know there has been a little bit of discussion about a lesser fee as part of this model. To give an example, if the fee were decreased by 25%, so from 4 to 3 for the hourly, from 20 to 15 for the daily, you'd be cutting these revenue projections by approximately 25%, which means the low scenario would still require some form of levy support, but the mid and the high scenario then would still be able to operate as they are. The mid would be the break even. The high scenario, you're still putting money aside.
Understood. But I just want that to be clear. Okay. Let's open it up for discussion. Questions, comments? Anybody? Councillor Chilcott.
Thank you. As you know, right from the start, I've been against paid parking at the beach, but I have looked at it and, I know when they came back with the report previously, it was $3.50 per vehicle for residents, and now it's gonna be $20 a day. So that's a huge jump. And, there was a point there where you have the hiring a new bylaw officer because they can be trained better than students could be. Is that how I understood that?
Well, a seasonal bylaw enforcement officer would generally be older. They might have more experience dealing with conflicting situations like parking enforcement. A student that doesn't necessarily have that skill set. So we'd be looking at a seasonal because they have some additional skills that we can fit within the modeling. To your comment about the costs. So when these reports were originally brought forward, when the waterfront committee considered the reports, either we hadn't started the data collection or we were in the process of data collection to see if this was something that would require levy support or something that we could take off the levy. Based upon the numbers that we have, it is something that can be taken off the levy as a full user pay system, which under the previous reports and previous suggestions, there would have still been a levy component, which would have then provided the option to give residents who are already paying through the levy a resident discount. The ability to pull it off the levy completely turns it into a full user pay system.
If it doesn't pull it off the levy completely?
We're confident it will based on the modeling.
So, again, back to the student. Could you not get somebody from police foundations? Like, I know that we have grants and we don't always get who we want with grants. We don't, sorry, I shouldn't say who we want, but how many people we need or want through the grant system. But hiring a student would be a whole lot less expensive than hiring a bylaw officer. And you could probably go to police foundations or someplace like that and get somebody that's in that realm. And again, where do they get their experience if they don't get hired?
To your comment, Counselor, through you, Mr. Mayor, you are correct that we could go through those programs. Student bylaw officers, you'd be paying somewhere in the ballpark of $18 an hour, whereas a seasonal, you could theoretically get a seasonal for up to $23 an hour. The benefit to a seasonal is that they may have 5 or 10 years of bylaw experience and they're doing it part-time, whereas a student, they may not have very much bylaw experience. And you're right, they may have the ability to cut their teeth and to learn, but there is also the merit, the benefit of having somebody come in as a seasonal with additional bylaw experience and those customer service soft skills. Realistically, the difference between $18 an hour and $23 an hour is somewhere in the area of $7,000, $8,000 in the model. So it is a cost.
And are they not assisting the full-time bylaw officer? Like, would he not be there to back them up?
From a supervisory
Always there, but to
Right.
train them to help them.
training, yes. Supervisory, yes. But the expectation is that a new bylaw officer would be based for the season specifically out of Port Burwell. So there is a degree of autonomy tied to the role.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Counselor Emerson.
Port Burwell doesn't operate in a vacuum, and it's one reason why I doubt your numbers. If the parking at the provincial park is less money than parking in Port Burwell, and if I was to choose at the East Beach, why wouldn't I go to the West Beach and the provincial park for $5 less? So I think what you're going to end up doing is driving traffic to the provincial park. And so then your revenues are skewed. So, if you look at the cost of the bylaw officer and the fines collected, which is 0 or negative, and if you look at the low side, we're going through this whole exercise to gain no additional revenue, actually. So I really question the numbers and I really question the ability. I don't think you can charge more than the wet provincial park is charging. In addition, I think as well that it is really unfair to have the same fees for ratepayers as people out of town. And it's objectionable, and actually it's kind of offensive. in my view, and several people have reached out to that effect. So if the problem is people from out of town and uncontrolled parking and overuse of the beach, I don't know why that burden falls on to the people that are residents of Bayham who already are paying taxes and water and sewage and whatever else. So I think that's unfair and unpalatable, and I think we cannot overlook the fact that we're not operating in a vacuum.
Okay, okay. I think maybe we should break it down into a simpler question. I think the first question that the council needs to address is from a principled point of view. Are you amenable or thinking of implementing a pilot program to see if this works for Bayham? That's one, the first thing. Then we get into the nuts and bolts after that about fees and things. And to your point- to your point-
Can I roll it back one more step? I think it's two separate issues, extra by law enforcement and paying for the beach.
Well, possibly. But what I'm trying to do is roll it so that it's bite-sized chunks. For example, to your point, Counselor, when you're talking about a $20 fee for the day at the East Beach versus an $18 park, get your point. You're right. The point that I had earlier was we have to set a fee that's cognizant of the services or the amenities that are available here in Port Burwell. We don't have the same servicing that Port Stanley has or what Port Dover has. We have, and so you have to recognize that through a fee structure. And I realize that has an impact on your modeling. But if we decide to go forward with some kind of a pilot, getting us closer to a net zero rather than everything being on the levy is attractive to me. Considering the fact that we've got, as the report had indicated, about $1 million worth of upgrades needed within the capital plan over the next 10 years. And no way to fund it.
Respectfully through Mr. Mayor, the maximum money that we're gonna supposedly in these projections wouldn't even put a dent in those capital things. On the average, I doubt you could buy a Moby mat with the.
If it happens under that scenario, that you ended up with the high paid with a 72 net, 10 years, just $700,000. That's 3/4 of the need right there.
Yeah, that's the operating budget as well.
Lauren?
Your worship, I'll speak to the finances and we'll speak to it very simplistic. The ratepayers today, Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, they pay proportionate share to service the operating loss of the beach. That is paid by every ratepayer, whether the ratepayer attends the beach or not. So by taking that off, you've reduced the administrative burden for that taxpayer. Now it's a pay-to-play model. If in the event that you get option 1 to 3, you have a net gain to the taxpayers. If you're over and above the operating loss, guess what? You now have a surplus, which then can be used in a combination of things, whether it's a 10-year debt, a 20-year debt. Oh, wait, this is new infrastructure that we can go to Infrastructure Ontario and access cheap debt on a serial debenture to pay for said capital, which then reduces the levy impact to all residents, Ward 1, 2, and 3, which then becomes a positive attribute everyone bill taking home. That's the financial takeaway.
Well,
I seen a hand over here, Councillor Chilcott. But again, just to reiterate, I think we need to break it down into small bite-sized chunks. Are you interested in exploring a pilot project for paid parking? And then we go on to the next step of what are we looking at for a model? Do we want to have a fee reduced for residents versus outside resident or visitors? Don't we go on from there? We keep building the policy as we go. Councillor Chilcott.
Thank you. Two things. I'm not sure that I want to agree to doing a pilot project when I don't know what the terms are going to be. Secondly, are you suggesting that the residents of Bayham, when they no longer have to pay for the upkeep of the beach are gonna get a reduction in their taxes?
This is not gonna levy. If council wants to move forward with this, I'll be budgeting that the beach is a net zero in the 25 operating budget. If council moves forward in this and we can start a pilot, I will be projecting a break-even model, just like every other municipality that started paid parking. And most of those have turned into a surplus and rolled it into infrastructure. Case in point, the first year of Central Elgin, they budgeted a net zero and had a surplus in excess of 800,000.
Yeah, but
From the parking,
Yes,
$800,000 in 1 year from parking.
yes.
I don't see
But-
that happening here.
But
Even
no,
if
that
we
won't
have a
happen here.
positive of 25, it can roll to capital.
the,
So, all right, Counselor,
No.
just I want to address the one point before I come over here. All right, fine. If you want to get into the weeds before you come back to the principle of it, we can do that. But I thought it would be easier if council just made up your mind. Are you interested in exploring it or not? If you're not, then let's save the discussion.
okay.
Counselor,
Mr. Mayor, to that point, whenever we do a project, approve a pilot project, or it doesn't come back to council, and then that choice is out of our hands. For example, shared services, we are going to do a 6 months trial, and then once we approve it, it's Thomas's decision respectfully to go ahead with that.
You are wrong.
No, I'm not.
You are wrong. Go back to the record and look, and we're not going to discuss that now. We are talking about paid parking on the beach.
Not, but if it's a pilot, it's a go. That's,
Yes, Counselor Froze.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. As per your question, I think I would be interested in pursuing a pilot project on a couple of conditions. The residents do need a $5 a year thing. I meet with people regularly, a group of guys every day, and if I go there and tell them that they have to pay a full rate, I'm gonna need protection. But anyway, that's number one. Number two is bylaw enforcement. Up until 3 years ago, we were at a 50% bylaw enforcement officer. We're already up to 60. And I would be willing to pursue it if our current bylaw officer would look after it under the current structure and not go up to 60 or 70% or whatever. Those are my two conditions. And the answer is yes to your question then.
Okay. Okay, from a principal point of view, yes, you're looking forward to it, or at least proceeding on it. There's a couple of conditions, there may be some problems with one of those, but still, let's deal with the principal first. This side of the room. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I have an issue with the residents having to fund or having to pay. So I know in the report, it's talking about a pass for the year of $75. I'm not comfortable with that. I think that the residents, I don't want to drive our residents outside of the municipality to go to other beaches that have more amenities. Because if they're gonna pay the same amount of parking here as they are somewhere else that has more amenities,
No.
then our residents aren't gonna stay here. So, you know, I think we need to have a conversation about that, the model. And so, yes, in theory, when the idea is that those that are coming in and using the services are helping to offset some of the operational costs of those services. But I don't think that should be at the expense of the ratepayer that goes there on a regular basis. If you don't go, then yeah, it would be nice to have the tax break off of your taxes. But if you do go, you could potentially be paying way more for parking than what the tax rate is on your yearly income tax or sorry, yeah, thank you, property taxes. So this is where it's a numbers thing, and I think we do have to be cognitive of our residents.
Yeah, thank you. So in a convoluted way, you said what?
That she wants a two-tiered pricing system.
Two-tiered pricing system?
Correct.
Yes, but so you're thinking that in principle,
In
on board, in principle. That's
with,
all. Yeah.
through
I
you,
get it.
Mr. Mayor, the same as Counselor Froze, it would have to be with conditions, yes.
Well, with Counselor Froze, what he's suggesting is an extreme discounted rate for residents, right? Yeah, you understand. We'll have to worry about that one as it comes. Counselor Chilcott.
Yeah, while we've got Lauren up there, I had a question.
Mhm.
Rainey just brought it to my mind. What would the average reduction be for each BAM resident if that wasn't on their levy?
1932.
It's
For you?
2,600 houses, so it's a shade under $20 a house.
Yep.
For the year?
For the year. It's
Thank you.
basically the equivalent of one day. But how many residents in every ward attend? I mean, go around the horseshoe. You guys are all BAM residents. How often do you attend the beach, Deputy Mayor?
3 to 4 times a year.
How often do you attend,
Yeah,
Councilor
probably about
Chilcott?
the same, depending on the year.
Mayor?
Might be down there for Canada Day, but that's it.
Councilor Emerson?
I can't bring my Sea-Doo to shore, so I prefer Turkey Point.
Norfolk charges the residents.
Don't
full
charge
stop
me
over there.
either. But through you, Mr. Mayor, to your point about user pay, there's many things that people pay taxes for that don't use. For example, public schools. If I don't have any kids, can I opt out of school taxes?
Right.
That's a lame argument, actually. Sorry, I don't mean any offense, but there should be some benefit to being a resident in BAM. Like, well, now we're gonna charge you to go to the beach. Like, we shouldn't be, actually. Like, if I choose to spend my money and buy property and pay taxes, I shouldn't be charged to go to the beach.
And through your worship, none taken, Councilor Emerson, this will be an item for council to chew on when they come back the operating budget and want to bring down the levy. We have headwinds coming with the United States and pressure that we're gonna have a very favorable levy for our residents. So all these things factor in, and as much as paid parking is, and our residents are concerned about what their tax bill is and how they're gonna pay for it. No different what their water and sewer rates are or other rates and fees that we apply.
Appreciate that. Put myself out there, again, no, I'm inclined to go towards adopting a pilot program, but Councilor Froze's point, I'm more inclined to having a two-tiered system, allowing some kind of a differentiated rate for BAM residents. Now, I realize Mark's still in the room here someplace. We had a conversation last week about, there was a possibility you were talking about some kind of a free pass system for residents.
So.
Maybe you might want to explain that.
So Honk Mobile does have a lot of flexibility through their programming, and what they can do is they can actually create a code. So for instance, Councilor Chilcott, you said that you went to the beach 3 times last year. So what they can do is they can, on your tax bill, we can provide them a code with Honk Mobile. They would have to register their vehicle and they would have 3 passes. Now, if they don't use that, that's still money that that doesn't that's not taken out from the users, right? So like there would still be space at the beach for paying users. So that's a good valid option too as well. If you guys would like to do something for the residents at a discounted rate, possibly what you could do is giving them the promo code for 3 or 4 free passes. And then that way it ensures that it's not being abused. And then I heard some other questions in regards to bylaw enforcement. My time is 60% here in Bayham, which I deal with all the property standards, zoning enforcement. And in the summer and spring months, it does get very, very busy. It will get very busy. And I also have to split 40% of my time with Malahide too as well. If you have paid parking down there without enforcement, you're not going to have the revenues. You need to have an enforcement officer down there to help with helping people log in their parking sessions. If they're an elderly person, showing them how to use the app, how to monitor it, and also monitoring the law and doing enforcement too as well. So a seasonal enforcement officer is not a recommendation, it's a requirement of actually having a paid parking system down there. Is there any questions or in relation to that?
Counselor Chilcott.
I had one more. You talked about ticketing these cars that run out of time or don't have whatever. What would a standard ticket cost?
So what I'm gonna be recommending is double, at least probably anywhere from $50 to $70 parking tickets.
Mm.
And the justification for that is if paid parking is $20 per day and they're just rolling the dice, if the tickets are $35, they're just gonna roll the dice. So you're gonna have a lot more tickets, which is gonna equal a lot more court time and also reduced income to coming in to the beach lots. I have quite a bit of experience working in by law enforcement, specifically in beach towns. And I have worked with Honk Mobile in the past while being a supervisor in Lambton Shores. And I can tell you that the parking programs do provide turnover, and they also provide a substantial amount of revenue too as well. And from speaking with different people in the area, I understand that Bayham has a different beach. We're not Port Stanley or Grand Bend. I understand that. However, people are going to come to our beach for different reasons. People don't want to go to Port Stanley and deal with 5,000 people on the beach. They want to go to a secluded beach that they can go that has nice amenities and Blue Flag Beach. Those are what we're bringing. We're bringing privacy and open space. So it's not that we have to compete with Port Stanley or say that we have all the same amenities. We're different because we have more space, we have more room, and that's why people are going to come. Also, I think it's important to note that Chatham Street, we haven't included that as a paid portion of parking too as well. So if residents would like to go and use the beach, they could still use the Chatham Beach for free, and there would be no cost associated with that.
Chatham Beach.
Oh, sorry, where the waterworks is, there's a section.
Not anymore.
From my understanding, people are walking into the park.
Not anymore.
No.
Well, sorry for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Could I get some clarification on the e-bike part? It says that it includes an enclosed structure or some type of storage. Is that in the $5,000 cost? Because I found that cost a little excessive.
So e-bikes usually range around $3,200 and 32 to 4,000. And then we budgeted about $1,000 for a shed that would be on the beach where an officer could actually put the e-bike. Criminals are pretty quick and they can rip off a bike very, very easily. So my idea is out of sight, out of mind. So just if we had a bike stand there, it could be ripped off very easily. And like I said, the e-bikes are anywhere from 1,800 to 4,000, but realistically in the 3 ranges where you're going to get a good bike that's gonna last.
Counselor Chilcott,
I think this is my last question.
you can ask as many as you like.
We've got pricing from Honk, but are there no other suppliers, no other people? I know that you're familiar with them, but
Yeah.
generally, I'm in purchasing. Generally, we get 3 quotes for everything. So
Yeah.
I'm shocked that we only have 1.
Through the mayor, in Southwestern Ontario, the 2 large providers for parking enforcement is really Honk and Hotspot. By having Hotspot or Honk, most people have the apps, so you're getting all of that adoption. And then also Honk has quite a bit of adoption around the London area. They're already involved in Central Elgin, which is a benefit to as well. And also St. Thomas too. So those are some benefits of going with Hotspot. Also, or Honk, sorry, Honk. And one of the disadvantages of going with Hotspot is when I was in Tillsonburg, I was reviewing the costs of enforcement there. It's very, very, very expensive to set up the program, especially for a trial program. It'd be in the range of 10 grand to set it up. Plus you have to plus they're taking a take on it too as well, just like Honk is too as well. So you have that initial setup fee, plus they're still getting their transaction fees. So I think really for our purposes, for our trial purposes, Honk is the way to go. One of the benefits with Hotspot is they have additional enforcement features. Because we're working with the county and the county is actually administrating all of our parking enforcement, administration, we don't have to worry about those extra features. They're not going to benefit us. They would benefit the court if we went with Hotspot instead of Honk. So overall, I think Honk is a better program, more user friendly, and like I said, we have the adoption rates already in the area with London, St. Thomas, and Central Elgin.
So in other words, oh, sorry, I was,
Just to follow up on that, you mentioned that there was a benefit to having them in St. Thomas and the surrounding area. What is the benefit of having them closer?
The benefit is, so for instance, when you have the app and you have the app, you log in your vehicle information saves. So for instance, if you're in London, you can use that same application. If you're in St. Thomas, you can use that same application. If you're in Port Stanley, you can use that same application. So people aren't having to do a lot of extra work. It's super easy. Basically, you just click in, you click the zone, you hit pay, you're good to go. You pick what vehicle. You might have a list of vehicles that are already pre-approved. So that's one of the benefits.
So benefit to the individual, not
It's a-
the municipality.
It's a benefit to the individual. Overall, the cost too is cheaper for Honk. And for a pilot project, you wouldn't want to outlay all that extra money for enforcement features, especially if we're not administering the tickets. The county is doing that, taking a 10% take on that. And that's only on the tickets that they're taking 10%. They're not taking 10% on the revenue. All that revenue, 90% of that revenue, or whatever Thomas said, is going all back to the municipality, which is substantial. If that
Okay.
works.
so from for a pilot perspective, rather than putting the outlay into additional software or whatever it is through Hotspot, this is the cheaper route to go. Keeping in mind, we're talking about a pilot. We just may decide this doesn't work and it isn't going to stay or be around for another year if we go this way. There's two benefits that I see coming up from this. The one is if we are required to enhance Wi-Fi down there, I see that as a benefit. Not only on the beach, but if we are considering Pitt Street, you're gonna have a enhanced Wi-Fi up there to reach the Pitt Street parking lot. But a question perhaps direct to the fire chief who's right here. Harry, if we had enhanced Wi-Fi down on the beach, does that help first responders communications on the beach, or do you still have to have a relay truck on the hill? It's a different system. All right, sorry about that. We're gonna use that as a selling feature, but anyway, Councilor Emerson.
There seems to be two issues, like one is generating revenue and one is enforcement of people parking in the wrong thing.
Mhm.
Can we just consider the option of skipping the whole honk and charging for the thing and just beef up enforcement and raise funds that way? Like hire a person, get the parking straightened out and just keep things as they are.
But I think we're missing out on the fact that it's going from a user pay system to back on the levy. So the ratepayers across Bayham are still gonna pay for this, and you haven't got a revenue generator to help offset the cost.
We do
Take
fines.
If everyone plays by the rules, won't be any fines. Just being devil's advocate.
It's fine, but I guess what is the greater? Excuse me, what is the greater of the two issues? And I mean, in the last meeting, we already deputized or whatever you want, Steve and Jamie to be able to write tickets too, or the meeting before. So they're empowered to write tickets.
Public Works wants to sit down on the beach and write tickets.
No, probably not, but that was because bylaw officer's not always around, right?
This is during the hours when they're out
Yeah.
early in the morning on patrol. That's what was to accommodate.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, okay, Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, without getting too far into the weeds, I just wonder what a projection would look like if the rates were reduced significantly for the ratepayer.
You mean
in
the resident?
The resident in Bayham and, or if they were eliminated altogether. Like, would we still be looking at similar income?
No.
No.
Megan, can you go to the chart there?
Which,
Nope, it's the scenario 2.
That one was only. That one's. Right?
No, that's scenario 2. Yeah, or it's just say 22,000 on the bottom. So if you can see that there, that model right there is based off of 50%, 50% ratepayer cost.
50% of
Fif-
ratepayer attending or 50%
50%.
rates?
So, so basically what we did in this model here is we've said
Mhm.
that 50% of the people that are gonna attend that they would have permits. So for instance, you can see the revenue is cut down from the first model. The first model was 40-some thousand.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And because we basically put 50% permits. So 50% of the people that would be coming would be permits. Like resident permits, and they'd be coming in for free. So it significantly reduces the amount.
From a
So-
volume perspective,
Pardon?
volume perspective.
From a
From a
pay
revenue.
perspective.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's volume driven. It's not differentiating in pricing.
What is the dollar? if the
She's looking at
residence is
$10
there?
a day.
That's the question.
versus $20 a day.
Yeah.
That's the point. If you didn't have anything out there for residents. Yes,
So the residents would be taking user pay spots.
right. Someone had it in. Yeah,
Mm.
Councilor Rhodes.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. It says including all fees. That would be, this is then including the bike and the bylaw officer, or this is just revenues before that? Where are we?
This projection here, this projection is basically the revenues. It shows at the bottom there, it shows the amount paid by the township and also paid by the driver. So it still has the fees in there. So it's, days per week is, Monday to Thursday is 17, and then Friday to Sunday is 13 days, plus 1 staff. So a total of 30 days.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do think that that daily rate needs to be reduced to 18 to match the provincial park.
Well, agreed, at least,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
least. So that's one thing, I'll concede that. What's the rest of council thinking? Still too high?
For everyone or just?
We haven't got that next question in there yet. That's the next question I think that needs to be addressed. Councillor Chilcott,
The $18, does that include the 290 plus does that include all the fees? The fees for honk?
So the $18, so if we did set the day rate at $18, it's $18 plus the,
290
yes,
plus.
so the park rate, I assume the provincial park, it's 18 base plus the HST and whatever else.
yes.
All right. All right, okay. To the point, though, I think it's gotta be comparable.
Yeah.
Anyway,
If you just keep adding on to it, it's gonna be more than $18.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I meant, it's gotta be at least comparable to the West Beach. You can't let the full day rate be the factor. Most people, I understand when they go, they don't stay for a day. They go for a couple hours, 3 hours, move on. And I think that's what the whole premise of paid parking is about, is to encourage them, if you're going out or not gonna stay, to try and turn over that parking spot. So that's the one thing.
Hmm.
So anyway, talking about the rates is one thing. You want to move on and talk about a resident discount? I think we should. I think that Councilor Froze brought it up about a resident discount, and yes, Councilor Froze.
Just gonna have another idea. I think we're trying to reinvent the wheel here. How about just put up a booth up at the top of the hill and put two students in there and charge them $20 every time they walk past or drive past.
Put a stamp
No.
on their hand.
Save.
I mean, how does
Everything.
I agree. Well, how does the provincial park do it? It's
They have
no
a booth. They have a
have
booth.
right?
It's one in and one out. There isn't two ways in and out of there.
Right?
Gotta go up the hill.
It's the same thing. You got to go up the hill. What's wrong with putting the student just collecting money and skipping everything?
How many parking spots does the provincial park got?
I don't have that information on hand.
I think it might go back to what we were talking about before when we were talking about machines, right, Steve?
Mhm.
Like at that point, it just wasn't feasible. The cost of the machines, and the number of spots just didn't make sense.
Well, in this scenario, we're already hiring somebody, right?
Under this particular scenario, if you're going to do it,
Fees here, fees there, break
Well-
here, break there. Even under that, in my scenario with the little booth, I still think the residents should get a discount.
okay, okay.
And you don't need a computer to figure it out.
No.
But you might need multiple students, providing, what are you gonna enforce, 12 hours a day? And then, if they only work 40 hours a week. Yeah. Have HST on what? Yeah. Just like the park,
Plus the honk fees.
plus the
right?
honk fees though.
Sorry, can you just repeat what he said for the people
All
at
right.
home?
The treasurer says that the daily fee would be plus the HST plus the honk fees.
Honk fees are $2.90, right? Pretty sure
Yes.
I read that somewhere.
Okay,
She already 29, and
So-
the VHST on the home fees, right?
So it's 23.24.
probably knowing how things work.
Day rate.
So in that respect, is that suggesting you want to reduce the fee so that it's paritable with the park at the end?
Well, the park is,
18 plus HST.
right,
That would have to be an all-in price.
2030.
So that would have to be an all-in price.
I think there's an easier way for council to do it, is say you look at staff and say, I want a daily rate that's comparable to
Flat.
to the fee at the park. And they figure out what it is.
Yeah, you'll have to reduce it to 290, 1817, so it's 16.
Now you're getting
Then
there.
if you're
See
like
what I'm
50,
trying to get
That's
at.
what
So
I
it's
said, that's what I
50
said by
bucks.
all in.
You did,
Yeah.
yeah, you want it all in, but comparable to the park.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
I see.
Okay.
For non-residents.
So if that's your daily rate that you're talking about for a pilot, that's one thing. The next thing is if you want, what do you want to, how do you want to treat the residents of Bayham? You want to differentiate between, the visitors and the ratepayers of, or the residents of Bayham? I'm seeing some consensus around the table. That's what you'd like to do. All right, how do you want to do it? I would rather it wasn't zero, but
That would be my choice.
That'd be my choice.
My
too.
choice too.
But I do have,
okay, then if that's the case that you want to do that, consider the fact that it'll probably be a hybrid. Some of it revenue from the beach and then the rest will be picked up by the levy. That's how it will be. Or the day, staff can bring us back another model. At the end of the day, that's where I'm looking for. But I'm trying to get some parameters out here to give staff direction. How about this? Can we have staff come back with some modeling that what it looks like if you differentiated and gave the visitor rate, whatever, $3 or $4, I don't care, an hour. And, the resident rate, you can do scenario with a 0, 1, 2. Mark,
Through your worship,
that will involve an admin fee, I know that.
yeah, through your worship, the 50%, uh, the model that scenario 2 does do that.
No, it talks about 50% of the residents, but it doesn't talk about the fee structure.
It's zero.
Because it's 0.
It's 0.
So we've factored that in. Basically, if there's 100 cars in the parking lot and 50 of them are owned by the municipality, and 50 of them are owned by residents, or sorry, 50 of them are owned by residents and 50 of them are owned by visitors. What we've done is we said, okay, 50 of those spots have been removed now because residents aren't paying. Our projection would be 22,000. That's where we're looking at. So we've already kind of taken those projections already in place. So council would be aware of that.
And that's the visitor rate remaining at $4.
That's, yes,
So the same result would perhaps occur then if it was $2 general rate across the board. 50% are residents at 0 versus 50% at 2 versus 50% and the 50% visitor at 2. Same result. Yeah, I know. But that's because, so it depends on what council wants to do. I'm just putting it out there. The benefit principle is user pay. And you don't pay an admin fee to honk at $500 a month to sort them out. Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry, Mark, could you confirm with scenario 2, are you paying the $500 honk fee then?
so with scenario 2, there is no $500.
There is
honk.
no, okay, because
Yeah.
there is, yeah, we're not issuing. Got it. I just wanted to clarify.
We're just basically saying that,
How are you enforcing what, oh, sorry, my apologies, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just wondering how do they have to, so the resident would have to register their vehicle then, basically, just so
They would
that,
have to register their
so we
vehicle.
know that got it. Okay.
I need that clarified again, Mark. You're saying that if there was a two-tiered system, meaning the visitor or the visitor pays a rate, but the resident doesn't, there is no administrative fee paid to honk to do that?
So to do that, if we wanted to do that, we would, sorry.
So
In these models, basically what we've done is we've just factored in and said, okay, we're taking 50% of the spots out because we're taking consideration that residents are going to be using those spots. And we didn't put any numbers out there for, $20 per vehicle or per season. Does that make sense?
He just cut the number of spaces in half. That's
Yeah.
basically what he did,
basically, that's what he's done.
right? So it's basically what we're doing. We're assuming that half the people that go to the beach are residents, which is probably not true.
But how does the program differentiate between a resident and a visitor?
So if we did do the resident program, it would be through Honk. It would be through Honk Hub,
Yeah.
and you'd have to
that's
pay
where
a
it is.
$50,
Oh.
or sorry,
The
$500
$500.
annual or
$500
monthly
monthly.
fee.
Yes.
Yes, which is contrary to the answer you got.
Right.
Okay. Counselor Chilcott. If it was a uniform
Why
rate,
do
there'd
we
be
have
no
to go
fee.
through Hub for our residents? Can't we just give them a permit, like a thing to hang in their window that has their license plate number on it and be done with it? Like,
Yeah.
that seems like we're overworking the Hub.
The front end cost of creating that ticket.
Not that much.
What's bag tags cost you, Thomas?
Per tag or
To create in general for the residents?
10 grand a change.
That's with stickers and backing and color. I'm talking just a thing you hang on your windshield, or you put in
point I'm trying to get at, there will be a cost up front to create that thing to hang off your mirror. Whereas if you're
$500
using,
per month.
you're
That's-
using
we
the,
should look into that.
if you're using the honk and you already have your license or plate registered with it, then it's just zero for the fee, right?
But then we pay $500 admin.
Or if it's $2 across the board or $1 across the board per hour and no admin fee. Because you're not differentiating. Lauren?
You're gonna. One model has a fixed cost, one has a variable. One factors in a percentage of residents. You don't know what day we're gonna have. We could have Canada Day and it could be 100% residents. Our best day of the year could have zero revenue. Is residents gonna be there on a Monday when they should be at work? Mostly that day would be visitors. Unless they're on vacation. Or they're retired. So, you know, go back to it. Do we give a discount to any residents who buy a second bag tag or third bag tag here? No, I'm asking a question. It's $2 a tag, right? Do we differentiate between a household that puts out one bag versus two, or the widow that has one bag a week, who does the 52 and pays in their levy,
The
versus the
discount
family
is
of
we get
five?
52 tags a year.
Yep, and that program is subsidized by the taxpayers at an operating loss, and it's not full user pay.
And sell a tag for $2. Hang in the window.
Respectfully, your worship, through Councillor Emerson, if you want a staff report back on full bag tags, I will gladly bring
No,
it back.
different,
talking
different.
about tags.
He's talking
No,
about
but
that.
we're talking about user fees, and the fairness is no different. The beach has a tax portion paid by the levy, just like waste management. We're trying to get to each of the departments are either a cost net neutral or create a surplus for their future capital. No different our water wastewater system or our sewage.
That's what you want. But that should net itself out and be from the revenue stream. From the modeling suggesting that it should be able to cover that 500 admin fee.
We did a similar model 2 years ago and we brought forward Big Curb to help with
Mhm.
dumping. And at the time, you guys waffled back and forth on what was an acceptable fee. And staff brought forward the private fees. Well, that's too much. Staff brought forward a number, well, that doesn't cover the costs. Has council brought forward the plan to kill the Big Curb? Most of our residents subscribe to it 3 to 4 times a year. Some of our residents subscribe to it 4 times a year.
Mhm.
We've actually enhanced the service to those residents from a pilot project. There has to be a fear to try, not a fear to do this. Pilot project is designed to see what your results are, what your operational net cash will generate, potential blowback from residents, potential blowback from non-residents. If you don't try, you don't have any data. Staff have accumulated as much as they can. We don't know how every day is going to line up with residents versus non-residents and what the ratio will be. It's like throwing a dart on a dartboard. Might be 5 today, it might be 95 today.
Well, thank you for the straight talk there, Mr. Treasurer.
You're welcome, your worship.
Scenario 2.
Yeah.
Which, care to elaborate, Deputy Mayor? Scenario 2.
With a recommended reduced daily rate to $18.
How much for residents?
Okay,
That's with permits, so that'd be 0 for residents.
$18 including all the fees and taxes.
No,
Not the tax.
plus, plus taxes and fee. So it'd still be $2.90 more than the provincial park, but at least it's closer in flat rate.
So it's $18 daily rate. You're talking about those
Mhm.
fees.
Yes.
You're talking 0 for residents. All right, what's the hourly rate then for non-resident? As modeled?
As modeled, $4.
Thoughts? Pilot?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely, as long as issue number 2 goes with it.
Okay, here's the issue number 2.
Oh.
If 60%, are you on 35 or 40 hours? Mark,
40 hours.
all right. 60% of his time is in Bayham, that's 24 hours. Those 3 days could be used up Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then nothing from a bylaw perspective happening in Bayham.
And also through your worship to all the property standards, zoning and other issues, there's it's peak time, summer and spring is a peak time for bylaw enforcement, so for me to be able to spend 3 days at the beach, it wouldn't happen. So you're not gonna get the projections that we're looking at here. There's not gonna, if there's no enforcement, there's not gonna be any recourse for people to pay. They're just gonna chance it. That's why we need a summer student or a seasonal bylaw enforcement officer. I haven't met a municipality that has lost money doing parking enforcement. I think this is a no-brainer. And when we look at even Norfolk, our neighbor, they've charged $35 per vehicle for resident parking. This is very, very common with the other municipalities. If they do want to do a pass for residents, that they make a fee, that is quite standard per vehicle. So I'll leave that up to you guys to decide.
Under this scenario, Mr. Treasurer, are we still looking at perhaps a net 0 at the end of the day or close to?
Any dollar above the variable cost of the bylaw enforcement officer for the part-time to support it is a net positive to the current levy structure.
Well, understood that.
Do I think we're gonna land somewhere in the model 1, 2, and 3? We're probably gonna land somewhere in the low range of 2.5. And if we're lucky, we go past 3, even with the split. You're at the mercy of weather. You're at the mercy of, is people gonna have a staycation this year with how expensive the US dollar is? Is people gonna do day tripping? During COVID, we've seen different things. Now we might see different things with the way how expensive travel is. People might pay, you know what, I'm gonna pay parking for the day and take my family to the beach. There's a lot of variables. You know, it's not like we're selling tickets to a venue. We're selling parking spots at the mercy of multiple other variables. So, I mean, if you exceed $1 above the variable cost that we're adding, it's still open to the levy.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask Lauren a quick question. Just to clarify, on these scenarios, is that factoring in any, like the cost? The 50,000 that it's costing us to maintain the beach?
They're in all 3 scenarios.
They're in, that's,
That's the operating, that's
so,
the operating loss to sustain it. So if you look at, if you can pull that up, Megan.
yeah, see, we don't have that sheet. I'm just looking at these scenario 1 and 2 in the report.
There.
So, okay, there,
Current
so
beach
that's,
expenditures as of 2024 year-end unaudited, it's just a shade under 65, 62 and change. Factor in inflation, you got a $65,000 operation to handle. You have a food vendor lease that's 15 that'll soon be coming up for renewal. You might have reduced revenues potentially down there. Your deficit is 50K.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify though, are these projections based on scenario 1 or 2?
65 no matter what.
No.
Are like, are these?
Profit loss.
Like, are they based on permits or no permits?
This was based on a parking thing. Thomas can speak to it.
The low scenario is based on permits. The high scenario is based on no permits, and the mid one is a middle ground.
You better clarify that one. The high one is based on no permits?
No permits. That's full hourly and daily rate. That's full utilization by
All right.
by paying customers. The low scenario bakes in the 50% at 0% for residents. The middle one is a middle ground.
All right. Okay, so you're even at the low scenario looking at a break-even analysis.
That is correct, unless council decides that it wants to reduce the daily rate to $18 an hour, that would impact
Right.
that figure, which has to be accounted for.
So that's the point that I was trying to get at. So it could still fall back onto the levy.
Hmm.
Or to break that even.
Your worship, that's incorrect because the 65 there is already on the levy. So you're actually have a net benefit of 66.
Well, it's a net benefit.
You have a
coming
net
forward.
benefit of 66 and a half. Because that 65 is there no matter whether you guys say yes or no or deferral tonight. That 65 is there no matter what. So your net benefit is actually 66,000.
Possibly.
65 is there no matter what. It's fixed cost unless you guys don't want to maintain the beach.
No, understood that.
Hmm.
So to summarize, what you're looking at is a reduced daily rate of $18. You're looking at a non-resident rate of $4 per hour. You're looking at a resident rate of 0. That's what you want for the pilot for 2025.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would support that.
Okay, now there may be some costs in here that are over and above that are not in the model. The enhanced Wi-Fi is not in this model, correct?
Correct. The enhanced Wi-Fi is not in this model because it brings broader benefit to beach users and visitors to Port Burwell.
Yeah.
The e-bike also isn't as well. If this is a one-year pilot and council doesn't want to consider extending that, then the bike can be surplused for similar cost. So we didn't include it in the modeling. This is simply fixed and variable costs.
So at the end of the day, if we choose to do this and walk away from it at the end, we've still got enhanced Wi-Fi. at The beach.
Who gets the e-bike?
Whoever buys it.
We'll sell raffle tickets on it.
Oh,
All right. Is this something that the council wants to do for a pilot?
We didn't clear up the bylaw officer versus student.
Bylaw versus student.
We didn't touch that at all to this point.
Okay, there's been some discussion on it. The argument going forward was that a more seasoned individual might be better enabled to deal with contentious tickets on the beach. A bylaw student, if they're going to enter in this field, I suppose that one argument could say you're going to have to learn it someplace. I'm not opposed to having a student, to be honest with you.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have backup. We have seasoned employees and everything in case there is an issue.
Well, there's another one too. It's called the OPP.
That's right. So, at least at the very end of pilot project to find out what happens. I mean, if it's like anything, even if you work at the liquor store and there's a problem with somebody stealing stuff, they just
Yep.
tell people to back away, right?
Mhm.
So.
Counselor Chilcott and then Deputy Mayor.
So the student would only be doing the parking. They wouldn't be responsible for going on the beach and saying, hey, you're not supposed to have fires here. You're not supposed to do anything like that. They are the student or the additional bylaw officer. They only are doing parking infractions, correct?
I don't believe that was the intention, Thomas.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, we're really getting into the operational weeds here. The way the models are identified is for $25,000 to cover seasonal. If we don't go with seasonal, which is an operational decision, student rate is less and we can save money there. The intent is that they're stationed at a Port Burwell. They are at the beach the majority of the time. They are down there doing parking, and should they see an infraction in the beach, we have had an amendment to the bylaw enforcement policy to permit active enforcement. So they will be doing that as well, because we do have a revised park and rec bylaw. But I would just advise council that you're getting into operational weeds here. And it's more of the policy of expanded bylaw, not the specific role itself.
Yeah, I was only asking for a matter of safety for the student or whomever is doing it, right?
Well, I think what staff are trying to tell you, if you wish to carry on with the active enforcement side of it, you might be better inclined to have a seasoned bylaw officer.
I'm still good with the student.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the intent of the program, if it's gonna be a pilot program, is to be there with someone professional who knows what they're doing, who can make sure that they're enforcing the rules so that we have the best cost recovery possible as a user pay system. So the model as it's outlined with, stationed by law enforcement, I think that's one of the most important pieces. What's the point of charging somebody if you're not gonna be down there to make sure that they're getting ticketed if they're going beyond what they're supposed to be?
Mhm.
So, yeah, if we're gonna pilot it, let's try and make the best bang for our buck, so it's.
All
Anyway.
right. Okay.
Actually, through Ms. Mayor, I thought the pilot was to gather data.
It is to gather data, but what I think the deputy mayor is trying to say is, if you're going to do it right the first time. In a very simplistic way. Do we, I think from a council perspective, set the policy and let staff run with it. So my understanding is then that we're looking at authorizing staff to go forward with a pilot for the year with certain parameters on it, which included the hourly rate and the rates for resident and daily rate. You had it there at one time. Yeah, I think that's pretty close.
So are you saying we can't make a recommendation as to whether it's a student or a bylaw officer?
Do you want him with a bloody nose, or do you want somebody that's gonna be seasoned enough that they're going to avoid that confrontation? What do you want? And do we stray into that?
I'm just asking.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to point out, putting it very colloquially. But what the deputy mayor is suggesting is, if you're going to do this, and have it so that the pilot succeeds. So rather than just only parking, but dealing with the other issues that may arise from the beach.
The other issues on the beach aren't part of the parking. Like that's what
Yeah.
we're doing, the parking, right? If we take away the parking, the items on the beach are still gonna happen.
To an extent.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. If we're afraid of conflict, which I believe this will bring to, then why the hell are we doing this? The name Bayham is gonna get, if this is what we're afraid of. And to get a $50 ticket, yeah, that's not gonna look very good.
Good. One,
Counselor Emerson.
one other question. Can we dedicate the revenue to a special fund for beach assets? And
We-
then if it's going general, it's less attractive, that we could even put a sign up, all funds collected are for beach improvements and accessibility enhancements or something.
My understanding in general that can be, but Thomas?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment on that. Since this is primarily to ensure that the data that we've collected this year through beach usership and the modeling that we've done through Honk actually realistically comes out as planned. It is probably best that after the pilot ends, council receive a report on the results and at that time decide how to allocate any surplus from the service. We don't want to guarantee and front run something that we necessarily can't control and say that we're going to dedicate surplus to it if one, for whatever reason, doesn't exist. So we'd be bringing a report back in Q4 on this to continue it or to cease it, depending on how it goes this year.
Acceptable?
I don't understand why we don't have control over the money we receive. I don't understand.
We may or may not receive
We
a
just don't
break
know
even. We
how
don't
much we're
know
gonna get.
whether it's gonna generate a surplus or whether this thing's gonna lose at this point. It's a pilot.
To answer, your worship, to answer the accounting or the net profit question, this council can establish a defined reserve for any operational department that they see fit in the operational budget. Respectfully, so you could have the operational budget before you in March and April, which is what we're gonna be doing. And you could put a motion on the floor that says any net proceeds will be defined in reserve beachfront capital. Then you get the report in Q4 in 2025. You can see what our surplus, what our deficit is. Council can chew on it. Council then can see the 10-year capital, which has $1,050,000 in works, and say, Mr. Treasurer, we were actually made a profit this year. What can we do the profit if we want to continue this model going forward? Well, Counselor, we can get a serial bond and start paying for this, for that. That's options. If they can establish a reserve.
Further to that, if we can establish that terms at the budget time, why can't we establish the terms right now when we're passing the motion? And, oh shoot, I just lost my other point. We might as well just do it right now then. If you say we can at any time, and you said earlier that any dollar positive is a dollar positive, that it wasn't a net loss or operating. You said like any dollar we receive is a dollar off the expenses. It doesn't have to show.
It's a dollar. So any dollar in excess of 50,000 is a net benefit to the levy. Any dollar greater than 50 is a net benefit. Once you're over 50, now you have a surplus.
Actually, it's a little more than that by the time you figure in the cost of bylaw and the cost of the honk fees.
Right now, if we have no revenue,
Yes.
we have a loss down
The
there.
point is anything above the 65 net cost.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, in the report, it says easily bylaw fees can be recovered by fines. It says that in the report. Yeah, it does. I read it.
It said fees or bylaw penalties were in the $10,000 to $15,000 range.
Correct. And the modeling doesn't include fines because they're variable.
Oh. All right, council. Are you ready to consider a question? And let's do this in two stages. What's your question on the floor first? Deal with the paid parking issue. Secondly, do you wish to establish a separate reserve with zero in it right now? Yes. Would you like to call the question? Madam Chair or Madam Clerk?
That report BL 0125 regarding Port Burwell East Beach paid parking options be received, and that staff be directed to implement a pilot program with a daily rate for non-residents of $4 an hour or $18 a day and no rate for residents.
I'd rather say it was zero. Let's see.
Okay, and a $0 rate for residents.
You wish,
Just to clarify that, the $0 rate would apply to the resident permit. If a resident decides they don't want to buy a permit and they're attending the beach, they're going to get charged the non-resident rate.
So buying a permit,
Pardon me?
buying a permit.
If-
No cost to the resident at all.
Right, but they still have to register their vehicle.
Okay,
If they don't,
buy.
which, yes, they have to acquire the permit. It's still free, but they have to do the steps to get there. If they don't, they get paid the non-resident rate.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
So possibly, so non-residents of $4 an hour or $18 a day, and the availability for residents to obtain.
A $0 resident permit.
We'll deal with that separate motion. If that's all right. This one passes. No one has moved or seconded this so far. Do you wish to make an amendment?
Yes. Well, to dedicate that to a special fund for monies received in excess of cost to go to beach enhancements or whatever, capital projects, whatever you want to call it. Directed to,
Dedicate. No. Staff be directed to establish a reserve fund. Reserve fund, reserve fund, reserve fund. For net proceeds from the pilot program. Now, that means that, going forward, if this thing becomes permanent, you might need to change that. So I'm looking at the pilot program.
So I'll read it all out again. That report BL 0125 regarding Port Burwell East Beach paid parking options be received, and that staff be directed to implement a pilot program with a daily rate for non-residents of $4 an hour or $18 a day, and the availability for residents to obtain a $0 resident permit, and that staff be directed to establish a reserve fund for net proceeds from the pilot program.
Question?
Just- Sorry, one question or clarification. The term of the pilot project. Is it 1 year starting in May to May
This is
or?
20,
It's a 25 pilot.
do you want that in there, the 2025 pilot program?
Mhm.
All right, we added 2025 pilot. Anything else? Okay. Is anyone interested in moving or seconding that? Now, we've gone to all the work of smithing that.
I'm-
Okay, so moved by Deputy Mayor Weiser, Counselor Chilcott will second. All in favor? What did I see? Three? Opposed? Okay, my count is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your patience. And Thomas? We don't have any public meetings or anything. You need a 5-minute recess? Let us do that. All right. Welcome back. We're going to retreat back to section 9. We have a member of the public who wished to make the presentation on 2 items, 13.1F and 13.2C. Is she there?
Hello?
There. Okay. Suzanne, you got 2 minutes on the topic of 13.1F.
Which one is that? I don't,
Council highlights.
okay. All right, about the Integrity Commissioner. Okay, so good evening, council. Thanks for letting me in on the late calendar said it was 7 o'clock, not 6. I'd like to start by congratulating the ADR Chambers on their new role as Elgin County's Integrity Commissioner. As background, Elgin County CAO sought County Council approval to extend the agreement with the former Integrity Commissioner, Airden Burles, for an amended term. During discussions, our mayor commented that BAM had recently considered the renewed terms and decided to extend the contract with Airden Burles for 2.5-year term. However, County Council thought the Bay Street rates were too steep and directed staff for a new procurement, ultimately resulting in Elgin awarding a contract to ADR Chambers at a cost of $300 an hour, almost half the rate of Airden Burles. What is troubling is that BAM did not publicly discuss its decision to extend the agreement with Airden Burles. Why? It's unclear how the decision in BAM was made. It was either discussed internally without council input or in closed session with council approval. To shed some light in the matter, I'm respectfully requesting council disclose whether they authorized the contract renewal and release the amended terms of the contract. This is essential for maintaining transparency and accountability and ensuring decisions serve the best interests of the taxpayers, particularly if BAM agreed to pay Airden Burles the $563 an hour they were demanding from Elgin.
Right. Thank you. Do you wish to move on to the 13.2, what was it? C, which is the
Facility audit.
procurement.
Yes. Okay, so I'd like to address the staff report requesting council authority to award a sole source contract to conduct a facility audit. Unfortunately, a copy of the quote was not included for council to review and consider, raising concerns over funding, acceptable procurement procedures, and compliance with required reporting obligations where senior staff certify the awards are in compliance with the purchasing bylaw. The facility audit has been on the capital budget since 2023 with multiple tax levy draws. And every year the project gets deferred to the following year budget, resulting in a $100,000 impact to the tax levy, specifically $35,000 in 2023, $35,000 in 2024, and an additional $30,000 from the tax levy in 2025, recently approved by council. Our procurement bylaw prohibits dividing contracts up to avoid the application of the provisions of the bylaw. In response to these concerns, staff conducted an informal request for quotation, receiving a single quote of $60,000, not 3 quotes. $60,000 is double the original estimate. Our procurement bylaw requires a formal request for quotation with at least 3 written quotes for projects over $10,000. Staff should have followed this procedure. If all 3 quotes had exceeded the approved $35,000 cost estimate, staff should have returned to council for approval. Our procurement bylaw states that projects over $50,000 should go out for tender. At this point, this is the only way to demonstrate fiscal responsibility to the community. This project is not the only one requiring clarification on funding, procurement, and reporting obligations. I request that council ensure staff follows proper procedures and considers seeking assistance from Elgin County Procurement Department if they don't know how to write up an RFP. Let's prioritize transparency, accountability, and fiscal responsibility. I urge you to take a closer look at this report and make an informed decision.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, let's move on. All right, we left off at section 12 section 12, which was development services, sustainability, and conservation, 12.1 correspondence, 12.1.1 to receive for information. Notice of decision regarding minor variance A 2324 Augustine. Does anyone have any issues or concerns or wants to discuss this? Then I need a mover and seconder for the following, that item 12.1.1A be received for information. Counselor Froze will move, Counselor Chilcott will second, all in favor? That is carried. 12.2 reports to council. Item A, report DR 0125 by Stephen Adams, Manager of Public Works, Drainage Superintendent, regarding the 2024 fourth quarter drainage report. Too many fours in there, chief.
Thank you,
Please.
your worship. Members of council, good evening. Yes, so before you, this is the wrap-up report for 2024 regarding drainage, municipal drains in particular. Coming into the winter here, we did close up quite a few different maintenance items. We did a couple, some of our drains we stood in front of council for this year got finished. So just to start off, just as a brief, so the branch C of the Eden drain did get completed late in the season. It's now completed. We'll issue a 1-year holdback next fall, I guess. On this, the North Street drain, since the report was written, is now complete. The contractor has been quite busy with it, working on it pretty much since our last council meeting, and worked through some holidays, and excellent job by them. There is obviously a little bit of a mess out there and cleanup. So come springtime, there's going to be some restoration work, and we can call it complete, and these landowners will continue moving on with their subdivided lots. So otherwise, new drain extensions, I'm thinking, talking to the municipal engineer, we'll be back in front of council the end of February with a couple of these reports. I did want to mention, talking to the Van Quatham, we did do that one earlier in the year. It was actually the year before. It's kind of been stalled. Well, it's been stalled due to some possible development in the area. So they want to change it, but they want to hold it where it is until they have an idea what could happen. So you're not going to see us back for that one until we get direction from the landowner on that, which is fine. And the municipal engineer's also been queued up on that one. For maintenance, other than closing a few items, we do have a few small ongoing. We're probably the Bartley drain, which is off of Cloden Road and Eden Line. There's going to be a pretty significant brushing, ditching job coming up. I did send letters to all the adjacent landowners. So the next week they'll be seeing these letters. It's just kind of a clarification why there's machine possibly on their property, what we're doing. This will be assessed to the whole watershed, however, which is pretty big, which is also in the hands of our municipal engineer right now, getting reassessed, since there's a lot of issues and discrepancies with properties. So that's the biggest one, other than some minor repairs yet to go, possibly when the weather gets nicer. The only new complaint we had really at the end of Q4 was for the Magar drain and just some slow flowing water. So that kind of concludes that for this year or for last year. Looking forward to another year. If there's any questions.
Thank you for that report, Steve. There's been a lot of work on drains this last year, so thank you for keeping up with the pace on that one. Any questions for our drainage superintendent? Seeing none? Thank you again, Steve. The motion would read: the report DR 0125 regarding the 2024 fourth quarter drainage report be received for information. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Chilcott, Councillor Emerson. All in favor? Carried. Item B, report DS 0125 by Scott Sutherland, Chief Building Official, regarding the 2024 fourth quarter building report. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have the 2024 fourth quarter and the 2024 year-end building permit activity report. As you can see in the first chart of the report, Q4 of 2024 continued the recent trend of strong quarters in the building department. Increases in permit fees and construction value were led by a substantial increase in new housing starts when compared to previous years. It's also worth noting, on basis of permit fees, construction value and housing starts, Q4 of 2024 was the best Bayonne's building department has seen in at least the last 10 years. With that said, 2024 was the first full year of building services as part of the Bayonne Malahide shared service model. And as you can see in the second chart of the report, 2024 was also one of the strongest building years overall for the municipality. In an effort to help explain the substantial increase in permit fees and construction value shown on 2024 year-end chart, 2024 has been compared to the 2021 in the third chart of the report, with 2021 being the highest number of total permits issued, but with lower permit fee and construction values than the 2024. The increases in 2024 are particularly due to the type of permits being issued. Although ICI permits were not broken out in 2021, you can see that there was a significant increase in housing starts, farm buildings, and presumably the ICI buildings in 2024. These are the types of permits that typically have higher permit fees and construction values when compared to the permits captured in the other category, which includes the smaller projects such as decks, sheds, septics, etc. Some of the permit fee increases is also partially due to the increased permit fees approved by council in 2023. With that report, staff anticipate further strong building permit activity in 2025 as the Eden East and Vienna Ridge subdivisions continue to progress. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for that report, Scott. Yes, it's been an ecstatic year, considering the number of housing starts. When you consider, and I'm saying this for the benefit of those who've tuned in and haven't seen the report, with a total construction value of over $33.4 million. That's incredible for the municipality of Bayonne. 53 housing starts. It's great. So with total permit fees of over $273,000. It's been a really good year for building services in Bayonne. Thanks a lot. And I know you've been busy. So I expect and I hope you're busy in 2025. Council, any questions? Great report, good results. Thank you very much, Scott. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. The motion reads that report DS 0125 regarding the fourth quarter building report be received for information. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councilor Froese, Councilor Emerson. All in favor? That's carried. Item C, report DS 0225 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk regarding rezoning application ZBA 2624 Weber. Mark, I'm a little disappointed. Last we left off, you were at 92.
Back to number 2 for 2025. See what kind of year we have ahead of us. So thank you, Your Worship, and through you to council. So this first report is for a rezoning application for Weber. Just making sure I have the right one in front of me here. The application that's been submitted, the purpose is to rezone the subject property from Hamlet Residential to a site-specific Hamlet Residential to permit a reduced lot frontage of 19.9 meters and a reduced lot area of 755 square meters. The effect of the bylaw would be to permit the reduced minimum lot frontage and minimum lot area as part of clearing the consent conditions of approval of Elgin Land Division Committee file number E2724 that was conditionally approved on April 24th, 2024. The public meeting was held December the 19th, and there were no attendees and no public comments and no agency comments received. Council considered staff report DS 23/24 on April the 4th of 2024 and supported consent application E2724 with conditions, and that included the approval for zoning bylaw amendment for the proposed parcel E, which is shown on the drawing attached to the report, to permit the reduced lot frontage and reduced lot area. So the public notice for the meeting was circulated on November the 15th and a second time on December the 11th. The bylaw is prepared for this application and attached to the report.
referring to the application sketch prepared by Husted Surveying. Staff and planner are supportive of the purpose and effect of the zoning amendment and to facilitate the severance of the rear portion parcel C that will eventually be added to the adjacent parcel A as a lot addition, which is the proposed severance in the consent application. Staff and planner concur that it conforms to the Bayham official plan and meets the general intent and purpose of our zoning bylaw. And we present the zoning bylaw to council for consideration. And I leave it with you, your worship.
Thank you very much for that report, Mark. Does anyone have any questions or any concerns? Seeing none, we have a motion before us that reads that report DS 0225 regarding the Weber rezoning application be received for information. And that pursuant to the Planning Act Regulations Bill 73 Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015. It be pointed out that at the public participation meeting held December 19th, 2024, associated with this application, there were no written submissions and no oral presentations regarding this matter, and that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution. And that zoning bylaw number Z 456/2003 as amended be further amended by changing the zoning on the lands owned by Quinn Weber, identified as 53867 Heritage Line, from Hamlet Residential to Site-Specific Hamlet Residential HR-17 zone to satisfy a condition of consent E 27-24. And that zoning bylaw number Z 795/2025 be presented to council for enactment. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Weiser, Councillor Chilcott. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item D, report DS 0325 by Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the rezoning application ZBA 2824 Able. Mark.
Thank you, your worship, and through you to council. The report before you is to consider a zoning application submitted by appointed agent Nathaniel Abel on behalf of Barb and Kevin Abel, looking to rezone their property municipally known as 54437 Vienna Line. The purpose of the bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject property from agricultural A1 to a site-specific agricultural A1-50 to facilitate the development of a detached accessory building for an additional residential unit. We'll call ARU as a short form. And they're seeking relief from the following provisions: that section 4.59E to permit the ARU with a maximum gross floor area that's 74% of the primary dwelling unit, whereas 40% is the requirement in the zoning bylaw. And section 4.59F to permit an ARU that is located 61.1 meters from the primary dwelling unit, whereas 40 meters is the requirement in the zoning bylaw. So the effect of the bylaw will be to facilitate the development of the ARU. The public meeting was held December the 19th, with one attendee being the appointed agent, and there were no public comments. Agency comment was received from the Elgin Federation of Agriculture on December the 11th, 2024, and is attached to the report for your information. The applicants are looking to provide an additional dwelling for their children to allow for a generational farm operation. The ARU is sized larger than the zoning permits. However, it still maintains that it is smaller and secondary to the primary dwelling, meeting the intent of the zoning bylaw. Private servicing of the ARU will be addressed at the building permit application stage, ensuring that the ARU is serviced with potable water supply and proper septic services. The purpose and the intent of the zoning amendment was circulated in the notice of public meeting held November the 29th. Staff and planner concur the proposed zoning bylaw amendment conforms to the OP and it meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. And we present the draft zoning bylaw for council's consideration. I leave it with you, your worship.
Well, thank you very much for that report. Does anyone have any questions, concerns regarding the rezoning application? I think we wore them out on earlier discussions. Okay. The motion reads that report DS 0325 regarding the Able rezoning application be received for information. And that pursuant to Planning Act Regulations Bill 73, Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015, it be pointed out that at one agency comment was received and at the public participation meeting held December the 19th, 2024, associated with this application, there were no public written submissions and one oral presentation by the appointed agent regarding this matter, and that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution. And that zoning bylaw number Z 456/2003 as amended, be further amended by changing the zoning on the lands owned by Barb and Kevin Abel, identified as 54437 Vienna line, from agricultural A1 to site-specific agricultural A1-50 zone, to facilitate the construction of an ARU on the property requiring relief from section 4.59E. Permit an ARU with a maximum gross floor area that is 74%, 139.4 square meters, or 1,500.5 square feet in size of the primary dwelling unit, 188.0 square meters, or 2,023.6 square feet in size, whereas 40%, or 75.2 square meters, or 809.4 square feet is required. And section 4.59F to permit an ARU that is located 61.1 meters, 200.1 feet from the primary dwelling unit, whereas 40 meters, 131.2 square feet is required. And that zoning bylaw number Z 796/2025 be presented to council for enactment. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Chilcott, Deputy Mayor Weisler. Before we pass the motion, I think this is an instant where local consideration should be prevalent in these kinds of zoning matters, because they're talking about building on an old barn site. It's not going to be farmed anyway. Make sense? Yeah. So all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item E, DS 0425, my Margaret Underhill, Planning Coordinator, Deputy Clerk, regarding the rezoning application ZBA 2824 Gloin and Group. You're on your way at 4.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to council. So this report is to consider a zoning application submitted by appointed agent Jesse Froese on behalf of William Gloin and Lila Grube to rezone a property known municipally as 56704 Eden Line. The purpose of the bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject property from Hamlet Residential to a site-specific Hamlet Residential zone to permit the development of an accessory detached garage on the subject property for the storage of a mobile home trailer and personal belongings. So they require relief from the following provisions. Section 9.5.1 to permit a maximum height of 5.3 meters, whereas 4.5 meters is required. And section 9.7 to permit a maximum floor area of 93 square meters, whereas 75 square meters is required in the zoning bylaw. The effect of the bylaw will be to permit the new accessory building or detached garage that exceeds the maximum height and maximum floor area. And again, stating that they need it for storage of a mobile home trailer and personal belongings. The public meeting was held December the 19th, with one attendee being the appointed agent, and no public comments, no agency comments were received. The purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw was circulated in the notice of public meeting on November the 29th. The planner's memorandum dated January 7th provides the analysis of the application pertaining to the Bayham OP and our zoning bylaw. Staff and planner concur that the zoning bylaw amendment application conforms to the Bayham OP and meets the general intent and purpose of our zoning bylaw. And we present the draft zoning bylaw for council's consideration. And I leave it with you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much for that report, Mark. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none, we have a proposed motion that reads report DS 0425 regarding the Gloin and Grube rezoning application be received for information. And that pursuant to Planning Act Regulations Bill 73, Smart Growth for Our Communities Act 2015. It be pointed out that at the public participation meeting held December the 19th, 2024, associated with this application, there were no public written submissions, and 1 oral presentation by the appointed agent regarding this matter, and that all considerations were taken into account in council's decision passing this resolution. And that zoning bylaw number Z 456/2003 as amended be further amended by changing the zoning on the lands owned by William Gloin and Lila Grube, identified as 56704 Eden Line from Hamlet Residential Zone to Site-Specific Hamlet Residential HR-18 Zone, to permit the construction of an accessory detached garage on the subject property for the storage of a recreational vehicle, mobile home, and personal belongings requiring relief from section 9.5.1. To permit a maximum accessory building height of 5.3 meters, 17.4 feet, whereas 4.5 meters or 14.8 feet is required. And section 9.7 to permit a maximum floor area for an accessory building of 93.0 square meters, 1,001 square feet, whereas 75 square meters or 807.3 square feet is required. And that zoning bylaw number Z 797/2025 be presented to council for enactment. Mover and seconder? Councillor Emerson, Councillor Froze. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Mark. Get busy on number 5 now. Moving forward with section 13, finance and administration, 13.1 correspondence, 13.1.1 to receive for information. Several pieces of correspondence. I'll read them off. Item A, City of Stratford regarding respecting local democracy and cities. Item B, Municipality of Kincardine regarding property taxation implications related to non-market valuation of electricity industry properties. C, Municipality of South Huron regarding Heritage Advisory Committee. D, City of Woodstock regarding Children's Aid Society. E, Emergency Management Ontario regarding proposed amendments to modernize the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. Item F, Elgin County regarding December 12th, 2024 Elgin County highlights. G, Long Point Region Conservation Authority regarding December 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. Any questions or concerns regarding any of these pieces of correspondence? Seeing none. Again, I think we wore them out. The motion would read that items 13.1.1A through G be received for information. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Chilcott and Deputy Mayor Weiser, all in favor? That is carried. 13.2, reports to council. We have item A, report CAO 0125 by Thomas Thayer, CAO regarding the transfer payment agreement, fire protection grant. Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So myself and the fire chief are here to answer questions on this file. So the Ontario Solicitor General announced in July of last year applications for the first round of the fire protection grant program, being administered over 3 years with 10 million allocated each year. The grant, the first year of the grant was targeted towards cancer prevention and minor infrastructure modernization initiatives. Based upon this, staff reviewed the 2 fire stations in Bayham to determine if a grant application was suitable. It was determined that $17,000 worth of improvements would be sought through an application. $7,500 at the Port Burwell Fire Station to assist in the separation between the vehicle exhaust and where the bunker gear is housed. At the Stratfordville station, the concern was not having a separate washing and drying room for soiled bunker gear. So we'd be looking at establishing a new room at the Stratfordville station at a cost of approximately $9,500. Based upon the application, we were advised in December that we'd be receiving a sum of $16,460.90 through the grant program, with the requirement to spend the funds by December 31st of 2025. To finalize receipt of these funds through the Office of the Solicitor General, we would have to enter into a transfer payment agreement by bylaw, at which time we'd be able to proceed with the project. So this falls under Council Strategic Plan 3.2, actively seek and apply for grants. So this is excellent. I appreciate everything Harry and Lauren have done to be able to apply and obtain this grant for BAM. The recommendation is to receive for information and to enter into the agreement. There is a bylaw later in the agenda. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll leave it with you and council. Should you have any questions, myself and the fire chief are available.
Well, thank you very much for that report, Thomas. If council recalls, during our capital tour, we had the opportunity to visit both fire halls and seen some of the, I guess you could say, deficiencies in terms of bunker gear storage and exposure to vehicle exhaust. So this, I think, goes a long way to trying to remedy that. I would also say to Chief Baranek, congratulations for the success on getting this assistance so that we can remedy some of these concerns. Council, any questions, concerns? Seeing none? Motion would read the report CAO 0125 regarding transfer payment agreement, fire protection grant be received for information. And that council authorize the chief administrative officer and mayor to execute a transfer payment agreement between His Majesty the King in right of Ontario, as represented by the Solicitor General and the municipality of BAM for the fire protection grant program. Can I have a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Weiser, Councillor Froese, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item B, report CAO 0225 by Thomas Thayer. CAO regarding agreement for residential waste management collection services, Norfolk Disposal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there was a motion passed by council on October 18th, 2022, in regards to opting out of the Blue Box transition, which necessitated us to look at our waste disposal contract with Norfolk Disposal. At that time, our contract was looking to be up in and around July the 1st of 2023. And that was the time that the Blue Box provision was transitioning from the municipality over to the province. The council at the April 6th meeting in 2023 did authorize a sole source of new curbside garbage collection to Norfolk Disposal and authorize that the bylaw be brought forward. This agreement also includes the bulk item curbside pickup. Council has received a few reports on this, the last being June 15th of 2023, establishing it as a permanent program with the $25 user fee. And a policy. Policy has since been adopted as brought forward by the clerk in August of 2023. So this report is bringing forward the bylaw. Now, this bylaw will be retroactive to July the 1st. And as you see in the agreement is significant. It's 294 pages in length. And the reason why it is so long is because it is based upon the original RFP that was issued in 2012, of which Norfolk Disposal was the only bidder. At that time, no formal agreement was actually drafted. It was simply the RFP appended to a bylaw, which required significant legal effort to then turn it into a standalone agreement. So the agreement is before you with some specific changes, removal of all language associated with curbside recycling because the municipality no longer oversees recycling, the inclusion of general language and process respecting the bulk curbside large item pickup is implemented by council. As directed, 7-year term with 2 1-year mutual extensions. This will be backdated to July the 1st of 2023. So the 7-year term will take us to 2030. Updated information regarding the number of urban and rural pickup locations and bulk bin locations and counts to modernize, and then generally minor administrative and clerical updates to language to recognize modern day considerations. The remainder of the agreement, in accordance with council direction, is materially the same with the RFP that was originally awarded in the contract that we originally had. So this is before council for consideration. Staff recommend authorizing the signing and approval of the agreement. This has been reviewed in full by our legal and by Norfolk Disposal. All parties are in agreement. So Mr. Mayor, I'll leave it with you and council.
Thank you very much for Thomas. I'm a little disappointed you're not going to take us through page by page in the 294-page agreement.
Do it.
But in the interest of time, perhaps we won't. Does anyone have any concerns with this? It is a lengthy agreement. Gave me a bit of a heart attack last night when I opened up the agenda and saw it was over 700 pages. Knowing that 294 of them are twice included in the agenda. Okay. We've been actually living this for the last year and a half anyway.
Yes, and they've been providing services in accordance with previous practice. So there are no service concerns with this.
One thing I will note, just for interest, you mentioned sole sourced with Norfolk Disposal, but at the time, they're the only player in town.
Well, they absolutely are the only player in town. And at the time, there was significant benefit to having Norfolk Disposal on board, since they were the ones that received the provincial RFP for recycling services as well. So
Correct.
materially, it would be of no change to our residents for service level.
Correct. So thank you for that. Councillor Froze.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe just a little bit off topic, but I've heard several compliments of the staff this New Year's, when all the garbage tag people came up and the residents, it went lickety split. I heard several compliments of our staff. Item number 2, and this might not fit right here. I hear other municipalities, they have one free bag. They don't need a tag for, and then if you need an additional tag, you have to go buy it like per week. And I know and the reason I bring it up, I'm just curious if it's worth exploring, maybe save money in Bayham. So, but it can be addressed at another time.
I think it's essentially what we still have here in Bayham. We have 52 tags unless you're farm, and then you get some extras, but
No, I guess the point is we print up, like you said earlier, $10,000 worth of tags,
Yep,
and that
yeah.
would cut that expense a lot if you allowed one free bag per household every week and the second bag tagged.
Thomas, comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, through you to the councilors. So I think what Councillor Emerson and Councillor Froze are getting at is that essentially, instead of having a package that goes out that we have to print and that staff have to put time into to actually give out to residents, that one free non-tagged bag be permitted at the curb. And that would take away from not only operational cost, but from staff time. And just for council's information on this, there has been internal staff discussion on this. We expect a report back later this year.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. Okay. Good news. Okay, thanks for that discussion. Yep, good idea. All right, we have a motion before us that reads report CAO 0225 regarding the agreement residential waste management collection services Norfolk Disposal be received for information. And that council authorized the chief administrative officer and mayor to execute an agreement between the municipality of Bayham and Norfolk Disposal for residential waste management collection services. And that the appropriate authorizing bylaw be brought forward for council's consideration. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Emerson will move, Councillor Froze will second. All in favor? That's carried. Item C, report CAO 0325 by Thomas Thayer. Numbers are getting up there, I was getting confused. CAO regarding method of procurement, capital item FA02 facility audits. Thomas, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this was part of the 2025-2034 capital budget. Current total allocation for FA02 is $60,000. For some background, staff have engaged Centric Engineering to provide a quote for 2025. Centric Engineering and a few subcontractors, they were the firms that tackled our 2014 and 2016 audits. The primary goal of this procurement is to evaluate the structural and building envelope, mechanical and electrical components, and building code compliance of 7 specific municipal facilities, being the Community Center Municipal Office here at Stratfordville, Public Works Building, Port Burwell's Fire Hall, Marine Museum and Library, and Stratfordville's Fire Hall and Library. This is essentially, we consider the goal of this an update to the existing agreements, audits rather than new audits per se. We're also looking at energy efficiency recommendations as a new category. This is a necessity to seek out methods to make facilities more energy efficient. This is consistent with the municipality's recently adopted energy conservation and demand management plan in accordance with OREG 2523. Based on the fact that we consider this to be an update rather than a new program, we did get a quote from Centric and their subcontractors totaling $57,900 plus HST and disbursements. So based on information that I have at hand, it looks like the 2014 and 2016 audits were conducted by Centric as sole awards or sole sources, either due to costs being below thresholds and or because the facility audits may reasonably include confidential technical information about the facilities being reviewed. And these audits, just for clarification, are not public documents. They are internal and we use them to inform our 10-year capital plan. Given the current day estimate of cost of providing this report to council, It does have a recommendation, but it is to obtain council's direction specific to procurement because there are a couple of options within the procurement policy. So first and foremost could be an RFP. We would not go to tender with this. We would like rather to provide a very high level document should we go with an RFP and let firms come to us with what they propose to satisfy our facility audit update. Section 17 to or 817 to 821 outline this process. Generally speaking, the RFP threshold is $50,000. So based on the quote provided, there is the possibility that this process is indeed above the threshold and wouldn't necessarily be something that we could do through 3 quotes as noted before. Since we have not formally gone through an RFP previously for this particular capital item, we'd have to draft one internally. That would take time. Myself and the manager of public works are capable of drafting this, but this would obviously take staff time to draft and then to have an external review to make sure it covers the bases we need it to cover. So there is the consideration that an RFP may result in a lower cost, but there is a time component involved should council wish us to have a report in play for the 2026-2035 capital budget. So just keep that in mind. The other option is sole source. Sections 835 to 837 outline the criteria for a sole source purchase. Specifically, 835 G and H may apply. So specifically for G, for matters involving security, police matters, or confidential issues, a purchase may be made in a manner that protects the confidentiality of a contractor or the municipality. So we consider confidentiality regarding technical information pertaining to our facilities as something that may fall under this category. The other option for H is a catch-all in that any situation where the council, the corporation, the municipality of Bayham deems it appropriate to do so, council may consider it appropriate to do so if the goal is an update of the existing and the desire to go with a contractor that has done these audits in the past and was involved in the significant renovations here in 2015 under that Canada 150 grant. So based upon that information, the council may choose to go the sole source route. Council may decide to go the RFP route. Staff are perfectly fine going either direction on this one. We will have to find some time over the next couple of months, myself and the manager of public works, to draft an RFP should council wish. But I will leave it with council to discuss, and staff are happy to go either way on this one. So leave it with you.
All right, thank you very much for that report, Thomas. Let's open it up for council consideration questions. Any concerns? First of all, it is timely, I think, that we do re-engage a facility audit. Okay, and that's to, again, as the purpose stated in the report, to determine the state of our buildings and to plan accordingly for the upcoming capital budgets of what measures need to be taken, and expenditures. Procurement option. RFP or sole sourcing. As staff have already identified, it is within the purview of council. You can sole source. And it was noted in the report that Centric was the agent that was used in 2014 in order to do these facility audits. So they are familiar with us. They've already been through these buildings. There is some benefit of going back to them. So let's open it up for council consideration. What would you like to do? My recommendation would be sole source, but Councillor Emerson.
If it goes to RFP and they're not the lowest, are we obliged to take the lowest bid considering the experience and everything?
If it's through an RFP process, unlike the tender, the municipality is not obligated to go with the lowest compliant bid. The intent of an RFP is for them to come to us and provide us with a proposal for how they would do the work. Cost is only one of the components that we'd have to evaluate. So the lowest compliant bid does not have to be accepted for an RFP.
So what's the harm in asking for RFP then?
Time's the only thing. Yeah. Whether you wish to have things included for the 26 capital or deferred to the 27. That's all. Yep. Councillor Frost.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. If there's a potential of us saving some money, I think let's go with the RFP.
Okay. Yep, can be done. Just as noted that it's going to require some time on behalf of staff in order to get those documents ready. That's all.
That's true, but
All right.
you know, it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. It's like a confirmational bias, right? If we don't
Yep.
know what else is out there, then we don't know.
You're right. And it may at the end of the day end up with being Centric that's back here anyway, because they may have already put in their bid amount, familiarity factor.
Yeah.
You know. Counselor Chilcott.
I agree if we went with 3 quotes because it puts apples to apples, right? Everybody's quoting the same thing and then you know whether or not.
Not
or they should
particularly,
be.
not particularly. This is an RFP process. We're
Right.
asking them to tell us how they would do it. Yes.
Yeah, so to clarify, the RFP would be something that we would issue through our public website. It would be something that's open to the public. An RFQ, where we're usually between $10,000 and $50,000, we can get 3 informal quotes in writing, but we don't have to publicly advertise for that. We can do all the work internally. The RFP is one step up over
Right,
that
but-
50,000.
The RFP is going to tell them what you want.
The RFP is going to give a very high level of what we want. It is for the bidder to provide us with how they want to satisfy general criteria and to provide us with their solution to essentially what we're asking for.
But they're all going to accomplish what we need them to do.
Well, we certainly hope so. Okay. So have you got us a reworked motion there, Madam Clerk?
That report CAO 0325 regarding method of procurement capital item number FA 02 facility audits be received for information, and that staff be directed to issue an RFP for capital item number FA 02 facility audits.
Okay. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor. Did I see Counselor Chilcott second that? Okay, all in favor? It's carried. Job security for you there, Thomas. Moving on with section 14 of the bylaws. We have a number of bylaws before us. Bylaw number 2025-001. Being a bylaw to authorize execution of an agreement between the corporation and municipality of Bayham and the environmental E360 solutions for portable washroom supply placement and cleaning. B, bylaw number 2025-002, being a bylaw to adopt a social media policy. Bylaw number 2025-003, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a transfer payment agreement between His Majesty the King in Right of Ontario and the Corporation and Municipality of Bayham for Fire Protection Grant Program. D, bylaw number 2025-004, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Corporation and Municipality of Bayham and Norfolk Disposal for Residential Waste Management Collection Services. Bylaw number Z795-2025, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z456-2003 as amended. Weber. Bylaw number Z796-2025, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z456-2003 as amended. Abel. And bylaw number Z797-2025, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z456-2003 as amended. Gloin. Does anyone have any question or concerns with the bylaws? I do have a question. Bylaw 2025-002, social media policy. Does this policy apply to standing committees of the corporation?
Through you, your worship, yes, it would.
That is the question that was put to me, but thank you very much. Counselor Emerson.
I have one question, and that is, there's a section in there about council and how to, you know, I don't know exactly what to say, but about our behavior and our use of social media. Aren't we already covered in that in our general code of conduct? It seems kind of like it's redundant, and I don't see the need to put that in there if we're already governed and on our behavior or whatever in the public.
If it's already covered under, then.
It
is
seems
there
like,
harm in
it
its
seems like,
redundancy, you mean?
well, yeah, and it's one can take it because a couple people have called me as that we're being chastised or
Really?
Yep. Yeah, and I never thought about it when we were discussing it, but I think about it and I'm going, well, if it's already there, why do we have to reinforce that?
Please, Thomas.
Through you, Mr. Mayor to Council, the policy is oftentimes municipal policies build on one another, so they'll have references to other policies built into them. I would call council's direction to the second page under the section, members of council and social media. There's a section on personal social media accounts that applies to staff as well. So we're treating staff and council the same way. Yes, your code of conduct would cover council, but our code of conduct also covers staff. And it's reiterated from both ways in this policy, just to make it clear that it does also cover social media. That's what I have to say.
It's fine. I just want on the
Okay.
record. It's fine, but I just want on the record, I don't really agree with that statement. So.
All right. Any other comments, concerns? With any of the bylaws? Okay, the motion is that bylaw numbers 2025-001, 2025-002, 2025-003, 2025-004, Z 795-2025, Z 796-2025, and Z 797-2025 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Chilcott and Deputy Mayor Weiser. All in favor? Okay, it's all carried. Thank you. I don't believe we have any other unfinished business, but we do have some other business. We will be going into an in-camera session. We'll pass the following motion. The council do now rise to enter into an in-camera session at 8:40 p.m. to discuss A, confidential item regarding education or training session by law enforcement. B, confidential item regarding labor relations, employee negotiations, administration. And is there a C? Was there not? Or is that it?
No, just those.
Those two. All right. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Weisler? Councilor Frost, thank you. All in favor? There we go. We're carried. Nobody wanted to go. Everybody wanted to go home.